We good?
Yep.
All right. My name is Brian King. From Freeze and Nichols. I'm the Vice President of the Arista, Texas. We're glad to have you all today. We're going to have Rupert S Inga, expert from Esri, talk about the Tell Your Story with Esri Story Maps. But first things first is our next speaker series, which is next month on the 26th of September, is going to be presented, or the presenter is going to be Steve Peasley from the NRCS, and he's presenting on creating custom soil databases, the gridded soil survey geographic databases, or the GSUGRO. It's on a Tuesday, same time, September 26th. We'll be sending out the flyer real quick, but that one should be an excellent presentation as well. The other thing is we've booked an all-day asset management workshop back-to-back on November the 2nd and November the 3rd. The November 2nd one will be held in San Antonio. It's Asset Management Workshop Planning, Strategy, and Implementation, and it will be presented by one of the leaders in the field, Alan Ibaugh. On the November the 3rd, we will be holding it in Austin at the Freeze and Nickel Training Room. The November 2nd one is in San Antonio at the Esri Training Room in San Antonio. So that will be pushed out here real soon, and please attend. I've visited it before, and it's an excellent all-day workshop for asset management, planning, strategy, and implementation. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Today's speaker is one of the story map experts. As a product engineer on the Esri Story Maps team. That's where he helps promote, and develop, and document the suite of story map app templates. He's been with Esri for more than 25 years. We'd like to welcome Rupert S Inga, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rupert. Please ask questions. You can type them in, or raise your hand, and we can try to let you unmute you and do the audio. But please think of some great questions for Rupert. We're going to hold about 20 minutes at the very end to do some Q&A. So Rupert, we're very pleased to have you, and thanks again for agreeing to it. We'll do some more house cleaning at the end once we finish up.
Sure. Hey, thanks a lot, Brian. Thanks very much for having me present to you this morning. My name is Rupert S Inga. As you can perhaps tell from the accent, I'm originally from the UK. I'm from Leicester in the Midlands of the UK, which has the greatest soccer team in the world. I'm currently based, and I work for ESRI in San Diego, California. And I'm talking to you from ESRI's San Diego office, which is just down the hill from Qualcomm's headquarters, one of the biggest corporations in San Diego. We're talking this morning about story maps. Story maps are one of the most popular features of the ArcGIS platform at the moment. There's approximately 250,000 of these story map apps have been created by our user community, and we've had like 400% growth in the last couple of years of story maps. Story maps are web applications that you can author in order to tell your story. The website I'm showing you at the moment is storymaps.arcgis.com. This is sort of the front door for story maps. So we've got some examples here and resources you can use. What do I mean by stories? Well, we're saying that everyone has a story to tell. Harness the power of maps to tell yours. What we mean by that is really presenting the story of your mission as you do your professional GIS work, whether you're looking to improve transportation in a city or a county or the state, or to protect environmental resources, whether you are trying to keep drugs out of communities, whether you're doing GIS analysis to try and improve access to healthcare. Whatever your mission is, the aim of story maps is to enable you to communicate that with your audience. It could be the general public. For example, you could be making a story map simply because you want to show off your city's parks and recreation facilities. Or it could be a story map that's accessible to the public, but where the target is really an advanced audience. For example, people who are stakeholders in a project where you want to show people the work that you've done. So you can think of story maps as being a great new tool that's in the toolkit for every spatial professional. Let me show you a couple of examples of story maps. So I've gone to storymaps.arcgis.com, and I'm going to scroll down, and you can see we've got some featured stories here. So one of these featured stories is by one of our users in Northern Ireland. This is where most of the scenes in Games of Thrones is filmed. They've made a story map that tours people around different locations where Games of Thrones was filmed in Northern Ireland. This particular story map app, and there are 8 of them all together, this particular app template is called the Story Map Journal. So all I'm doing here is scrolling through, and then each section in a journal's got text, it's got graphics on the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side, you've got interactive web maps created with ArcGIS. You can also put images and videos over there on the right as well. So it's really fun to scroll through that and check out those locations. I really like how it combines the aerial image in the web map, but also a photograph, and it sort of brings it to life, showing you where those locations are. Here's another story map journal. This is all about dams, the largest dams in the world. So as I scroll through this journal, I can find out all about the different dams. Notice how this shows me, they've got a static map over on the left-hand side to show you where this dam is located in Pakistan. So not every map in a story map has to be interactive. As I scroll through, notice how there's some links in here as well. So in the narrative text, you can make links that your end users can click on, and those links can automatically pan and zoom the map or turn different layers on or off to enable you to tell your story. So in this case, it's saying that east of the primary dam, there are some secondary concrete dams. If I click on that link, it automatically zooms and shows me that. So it's a very nice feature of the Story Map Journal, is that you can create those interactive links. This is a fun one to look at. You can check out some of the largest dams in the world. This is another story map app template. This is one of the 8 templates. This is called the Story Map Cascade. The Story Map Cascade is getting really popular because of all the story map apps, it's the one that looks least like a GIS app. This story map application template fills the whole screen. So it starts off with an image or a video on the cover page. Then there's text, there's graphics, there's images. So you can check out all about America's infrastructure. As I scroll through, you see the maps change. There's a narrative that floats over the top of the maps too. When you get to a map, as you continue scrolling, so all I'm doing as a user is scrolling through this. The author has decided what map extent and what layers and what pop-ups are going to appear, and also what narrative's going to appear while I'm scrolling through. So it's a really powerful way of telling stories. And I should point out that the Cascade looks like a fairly standard web page, the sort of thing you see very often, but everything you're seeing on screen here is all defined inside one Cascade application. Here's another story map Cascade. This was created by a city in New York State to show how they're mapping stormwater drainage. Now, it's not the most glamorous topic, but they made a really great story map telling you exactly how to do that mapping. So we thought that they did a really good job of turning a fairly mundane topic, the sort of bread and butter applications that we all do as GIS professionals, into a really compelling story. So they've included infographics, text narrative, they've got diagrams showing what's going on, they have images, and then if you continue scrolling through, it tells you how they collect their data. It's a really great environment for showing people the work that you do. If I keep scrolling through, I eventually get to they have a web map. So notice how the web map unfolds. As I scroll through, I'm not zooming and panning the map myself. I'm simply scrolling through this cascade, and they've authored what they want me to look at. Really nice bit of work. Here's another one. This is created by the City of Tempe, Arizona, to show citizens and stakeholders the program they've got to eliminate graffiti in the city. Tells you all about the program. They have some embedded charts, some images showing the project. Then it tells you about the GIS integration. Here's how they use GIS to do this project. So you can see the results of the GIS analysis. So this analysis was done, some of this was done in ArcMap, some of it was done in ArcGIS Online. They're showing you the results here. It's a really great bit of work. So story maps. Story maps are part of the ArcGIS platform. So if you're an ArcGIS user, there's nothing else you need to buy, nothing else you need to install in order to create story maps. Story maps are part of ArcGIS. So this is arcgis.com. I'm just going to sign in to my enterprise system. So I'm now logging in with my account, and it's going to the ArcGIS online homepage for my organization. I'm going to go to my content. I wanted to show you this because this is where you'll find story map applications exposed when you use ArcGIS Online or when you use ArcGIS Enterprise. So if I click on the Create menu there and say Create an app using a template, you'll see this gallery of all the configurable apps you can create in ArcGIS Online. And by that, we mean when you use ArcGIS Online and make maps, you can share those using apps. So there's lots of different apps you can share your maps with. These are ways of publishing your maps as applications to make them easier to use. So there's apps for collecting data, there's apps for summarizing data, there's apps for comparing different layers, and so on. But the ones we're talking about in this presentation are the story map apps. So here you'll see the 8 apps that I mentioned earlier. So there's a story map cascade, there's the story map journal. So you can immediately start creating those. Now the basic pattern in ArcGIS is you create maps with data, and then you put those to work using apps. So for example, here's a web map I created in ArcGIS Online. So it's a standard web map in ArcGIS Online. So to create this map, you can publish data from ArcGIS Pro or publish data from ArcMap as layers and add it into the map. You can also search for layers. You can search layers that ESRI provides, which are ready to use high quality data. We call it the Living Atlas. So you can add data from the Living Atlas directly into your map. So if I want to search for demographics, I can do that right from here. So lots of data that's ready for you to add into your maps. You can also add data directly from your computer. So in this case, this particular map is one I authored to show places of interest in San Diego, because I want to make some story maps all about San Diego. And I've authored it. So as you zoom in, you'll see the trolley system, then you see places of interest, and you see some neighborhoods. So my neighborhood polygons here are simply shape files I created in ArcMap, and I zipped those up and added them into my web map. The trolley system is started off life in ArcMap as a feature class layer, and I published that into ArcGIS Online and added it into my web map. I've also shared that service publicly so that anyone who wants to can also add the trolley data that I created into this map. You can also add data right from spreadsheets into a web map. So here's a spreadsheet I created with places of interest in San Diego. It's got street addresses for each place, also has a bunch of information. So yeah, forgive me if you've seen this already, but I thought this was good to show how easy it is to get data into a web map. So I've saved that spreadsheet as a CSV file, and you can just drag and drop that directly into a web map to add a new layer of data. So it's letting me symbolize the data. Let's symbolize it by the type. Let's choose some colors. Those look okay. So I've added that into my web map. Now I can configure the pop-ups for it. So I can configure pop-ups. This lets me configure what people are going to see when they click on things in the map. And that's the basic pattern in ArcGIS Online. So you get your data, or you get other people's data. You might get data that's been shared by people inside your user community, or by stakeholders on a project, or inside your organization, and you add them into web maps. When you create a web map in ArcGIS Online, like I've shown, you can display it in the ArcGIS Online map viewer. And this is a simple map I showed showing demographic data for the USA. This uses some Living Atlas data. But this user interface is really designed for people to view and author maps who are working with the system. You wouldn't want to tell your story with this user interface, so you create a story map. So if I share this web map and click on Create a Web App, you'll see that same gallery of configurable applications, and I can choose to create a story map from that web map. If I click on Story Map Journal, it will let me create a Story Map Journal application. Let's call this Story Map Demo. This will automatically launch the Story Map Builder for the application I selected. It's saying, do you want the panel to be on the left, like the ones you saw earlier, or on the right? So I can choose that, choose a title. Now I can start authoring my story map. So I can, for example, choose the map that I just created, and so on. So I hope everyone's okay with that so far. So let's see what you would do in order to create story maps. Imagine you've seen this presentation and you're excited about story maps, or you think you might have a way of using them, but you're not sure yet, or you need a bit more convincing. Here's what you could do. Story map applications are built into ArcGIS.com, so they're built into the ArcGIS platform. But we've made the Story Maps website so we can provide some additional resources for you. We've also provided a gallery of examples so you can get inspired by what other people have done. So what I'd suggest is you go to storymaps.arcgis.com. You could browse some of the ones we've already had looked at. You can also click on the apps list. I mentioned that there are 8 different story map application templates, and here they all are. So you can browse through all of those apps and check out to see which one will be right for your story. If you're not sure, we've also got a little wizard here. So if you click on Create Story, this shows you the 8 apps. But if you click on Ask the Pros, we have a little wizard that will ask you questions about the sort of story you want to tell and let you browse through, and then it will recommend which story map application to use. If you click on one of these entries, like imagine you're not sure what the story map tour is, and you want to find out what that is. If I click on story map tour, it will take me to an overview page all about that app. So there's a button here that lets you immediately create that app. So it launches the same resource that I just showed you in ArcGIS.com. It's all tied together. But if you scroll down here, you'll see some examples of that particular story map app. You'll also see some resources. So there's a tutorial, FAQs, and blog posts. The story map tour, by the way, this was the first application we created in the storytelling series. This is being used very widely. Here's an example from the city of Santa Clara, California, which is in the heart of Silicon Valley. So they use the story map tour to present to citizens and stakeholders development projects in that city. I wanted to show you this one because they did a really nice job of this. They worked with their graphic design folks to make a really nice introductory slide for the tour. Then as you browse through, it shows you the footprints of each of those developments and shows you a photo as well. Then there's also, sorry, a photo or a rendering in some cases. Then there's also a hyperlink in the caption that links out to the city website, showing me more information about that project. So as you can probably see, this story map tour template is very different from the journal and the cascade I showed you earlier. So a big part of making a story map is choosing the right application template for your project. So story map tour is really good at showing a small set of photos and their locations on a single map. So it's a very simple UI. People can browse to, or they can click on the entries on the map to see what's going on. So imagine you're interested in Story Map Tour. What we'd recommend you do is go to the Story Map Gallery. The Story Map Gallery lets you see examples that we've selected from the ones created within ESRI and also by the user community to give you some inspiring examples. So you can look at the gallery for individual apps, like this is a Story Map Tour gallery, or you can look at the gallery for all the apps, and you'll see the apps listed on the left. So we really recommend you spend some time looking in the gallery before you start your story map project. So before you start a story map, have a look in the story map gallery. You can filter it based on subject. So if you're working in planning and design, or if your story is about nature and conservation, or travel and recreation, maybe you want to make a story for your city, telling people about recreation opportunities in the city. You can also filter it on industry as well. So let's say you work in transportation and you want to make a story map all about a rail project. So type in a keyword search and you might be able to get a really inspiring example showing you how story maps can be used to tell that story. So if you're interested in the map tour, because you've got a set of photos, you can filter this as well. So you can look at map tour examples. So here's an example from the San Diego Association of Governments. This is the local planning authority for San Diego region where I'm currently located. This example shows you a web page. And this is an important example to show you folks because they've included their story map on the web page for this project. So I wanted to make the point that when you make a story map and share it publicly, that's not the end of your work. You've now got to get that in front of your audience. You've got to promote it. For example, you can add it as a link onto a web page like Sandag did. This is the project web page for their coastal rail project. They call it the Los San project. It's from Los Angeles to San Diego. It's a project to improve the train link between those two cities to speed up transit. So they created a story map tour. They didn't try and embed it on this page because there's not really enough space on the page to embed the story nicely. But they've just put a screenshot of it right on the web page, and you can click on that to launch their tour. So it's a great way to get your story map in front of your intended audience. Notice how if I scroll down further, they've got videos and they have PDF files about the project. But their story map they created for this project is really simple. It just shows the, I'll click that again to reload that. So it shows all the different construction work they're doing on this route. So as I browse through, I can check them out. They also did a little bit of customization on this themselves. So you create story maps, you don't need to do any coding, no coding's involved. It's all created interactively. But if you want to, you can make customizations or work with a developer. For example, they wanted to add a little legend onto the story map tour that we don't support out of the box. So they added some code themselves to provide that. So it's a really nice piece of work. Going back to the story maps gallery, I just want to go back here and show you why we think this is a great place to start if you're looking to create story maps. So before you dive in, we'd definitely recommend doing some searches in here. You might, for example, find a story map that's the same subject as that you have in mind. And when you open it, you might think, well, that's not a great approach. I've got a different idea. So we've chosen these examples to represent some best practices, but it's up to you whether you follow them or not. You might look at a story map and think, well, I think I could do it better, or this story map works okay, but isn't exactly what I want to show. I'm just doing a search on Texas. So this is all the story maps about Texas. There's an example here from the city of Georgetown, Texas. This was about this is all about their sidewalk master plan. So as you can see, it's a story map journal. So the journal is very different from the tour. The journal lets you author sections, and each section can show text on the left, and then in this case they've got infographics. Then they have a web map with the legend and information telling you all about it. Then they've got another infographic. It's a really great piece of work. It shows you everything they're doing in that city to improve the sidewalks. If you're working in coastal, the coastal environment, there are a lot of examples here. I'm going to filter the gallery on national government examples. So here's a bunch of national government examples, and there's a lot of story maps created by NOAA, and I wanted to show you a couple of examples of these. Yeah, this is an example created as part of the Deepwater Horizon remediation. This was created by NOAA in association with a bunch of different agencies. This is the homepage for the Gulf Spill Restoration Project. If I scroll down the homepage, you'll see that they created a story map showing people all the different restoration projects, and they've added a link to it into their web page. This story map application template is called Story Map Shortlist. It's one of the 8 application templates. This lets you show a large number of places organized into different thematic tabs. In this case, they've got a tab for each state. Then you can check out places where they've done remediation in different locations with information about each one. Okay, so I've shown you the story map gallery. Let's start creating a story map. Okay, so imagine you've looked at the app list, you've got an idea for what the different apps can do. You've looked in the story map gallery. Hopefully you've got inspired, or you've got some ideas. You might find a project in here that you could then go and show to management or show to an executive and say, we could make a story map like this using ArcGIS. Imagine you've done that and now you want to create a story map. So I'm going to go to the apps page, and I'm going to make a story map journal using that map about San Diego I showed you earlier. So I'm going to click on the build button. I'm already signed into ArcGIS, so it's put me right into the builder. So I'm now in the interactive builder. This is the environment you use to create a story map journal. There's an inspiring quote at the top by J.K. Rowling. And now I can start creating my journal. So I'm going to call it Demo 2, Eureka, Texas. It's telling me about the side panel, which is the left-hand side, and the main stage, which is the main part. Now it's saying, what do you want to have as your content? So I made that map. I might include that, but it's really cool to start off your story map with an image. You don't have to, but I'm going to in this case. Here's what you do. You go to the image option, and I'm simply going to drag and drop an image right from my computer. So here's some images I took of San Diego. I'm just going to drag and drop one of those. There's one here I think would be a nice way to start my story map journal. I'm simply dragging and dropping that image into the story map, and it gets stored automatically in ArcGIS, hosted in it. So I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to that image. It's always going to be in my story map. Now I'm going to add some text. Well, I'm not going to, you won't have to sit and watch me type a whole bunch of text. I've got a little notepad file here with some text in that I want to use. You could also type it directly in or load it from a existing resource. So here's the text. So I've created the first section of my story map. Let's add another section. Let's add a section about downtown San Diego. No, actually, let's add a section about San Diego in general. Let's call it Welcome to San Diego. Now I want to use my map. So I'm going to go to, select a map, and these are all the maps in my contents. I could also browse maps that are created by people in my organization. And I can also add maps created by anyone using ArcGIS and shared publicly. So it's a really powerful environment. For example, if you're making a map about pollution sources, instead of having to make that map yourself, you could find a map that's been shared, for example, by the EPA or a state agency and add it into your story map. So you don't have to be the author of the map to use it in a story. In this case, I am going to use a map that I created myself. And I'm going to say, I want to use that map, but I want to choose which location it shows me, because my map sort of covers all of Southern California. I'm not sure if you folks can see this, but it's prompting me to say, zoom to the area that you want to show in your story on this map. So I've selected that area. Now I'm going to add some text all about San Diego. Let's go back to my cheat sheet of text and grab some of this text. Paste that in. Okay, so now I've got 2 sections in my story. Let's add one more section, then we'll see how far we've got so far. So now I want to add a section about downtown San Diego. So the story map I'm creating it's a visitor's guide to San Diego. So I started off with an image, started off with an overview map. Now I want to zoom into downtown San Diego to show people some of the cool places they can find there. So I'm going to use the same map that I already used. So every section in this particular journal is going to use the same map. But I want to zoom in right on downtown San Diego. So I'm configuring that. So I'm overriding the extent that's stored in that web map to get exactly the extent I want to show. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to save that. You might have noticed in that map, I've got some places of interest. I don't want to show all of those at once. So I'm configuring which layers in that map I want to show. So I just want to show fun. I don't want to show the food and the design places. I want to show the trolley station, so I'm leaving that turned on. Now I'm going to go and get my text. And I'm going to paste that right into here. So now I've got my 3rd section in my story map, but my text is a bit, actually I've repeated the title. Let me go into my text and edit that. My text is a bit boring. I want to add an image in here. So I'm simply going to, let's click add an image, and then I'm going to add another image. I'm going to go to my images, and I took a couple of images of downtown San Diego that I think will work nicely here. So I'm going to drag and drop this image into my story map. It's loaded in. I can add a caption. I can say San Diego trolley. So there's sort of a disclaimer I should give you, and before I set you loose creating story maps, is that, and it's sort of a serious disclaimer, once you start making story maps, you won't get any other work done because it's seriously addictive creating story maps. I spend a lot of time tweaking them, and my colleagues who create them spend a lot of time tweaking and improving them. And we know that our users do as well. So now I've added my image into there. Now I'm going to save that. And now, if I want to, I could share it. Like this story map isn't really finished yet because I've only got 3 sections, but right now I can share this publicly. So as soon as I click public, this story map is going to be live on the web for anyone in the world to look at. You can also share story maps just inside your organization. So it's an important point that Story maps can be shared publicly, but you can also use story maps to tell stories that you only want people inside your enterprise to view. For example, you might make a story map showing the 20 locations where your agency needs to improve customer service, or whatever the story is. You can create those by simply creating a story map and then sharing it within your organization. You can also preview your story map. So let's preview the story map to see what I've done so far. So there's an orange and a green button at the top. I'm only seeing that because I'm currently logged in. This is just telling me that there's no issues with my story and the story is not shared. So I can close those. This is how this story map will appear to my end users. So that's the first section I created. That's the second section. And there's the third section. So I hope you can see it's really powerful because you can navigate through a map and enable people to interact with it simply by them scrolling through a story. One way of thinking of story maps is, as sort of spatial and mapping professionals, you're probably quite often in situations where you're sitting next to someone or giving a presentation to the mayor or to politicians or to executives or your peers, showing them a map, and you might zoom and pan and click on things to show them what's in the map. A story map lets you capture that presentation and store it in an interactive web app. I've only got a couple of minutes left before I wanted to hand over to questions, but there's one more thing I want to do. Once I show you this, you'll know everything about how to make a story map journal. So I've gone back to the story map builder. And I want to edit this section and add a bit more text. So here's a couple of lines of text. I want to show you how to make an interactive story action that you can add into your narrative so people can see particular things on the map. So I added a sentence about the Gaslamp Quarter. If you've been to the Esri user conference, you know that's a hopping place during the conference. I've also added a sentence about Little Italy, which is a quieter neighborhood of San Diego that's also well worth visiting. I'm going to select the name Gaslamp Quarter, and I'm going to turn that into a story action. So it's saying, what do you want people to see when they click on that story action? So I'm going to configure that. I want people to zoom into the Gaslamp Quarter, and I'm saving that location. I also want these layers in the map to turn on. And I also want this pop-up to get displayed. So I'm clicking on a pop-up, then I'm saving that configuration in my story map to add that story action. Now I'm going to press apply. Let's do the same thing with Little Italy. Let's make a story action that zooms into Little Italy. So I'm going to zoom out here. Let's go up to here. Zoom in on Little Italy. Save that. So you sort of get the idea. Now I'm going to save. Now you can see that the words that I made into story map actions appear in bold here. And you can click on that. There's the gas lamp. Or your end user can click on Little Italy to go to Little Italy. So I thought I'd show you that because that's another way of animating your story map. Story map actions are only supported in the map journal. Map journal is a really flexible and powerful application for telling stories. That's why I chose it as the one to show you in the presentation, because I think as GIS professionals, it's perhaps the one you might create most frequently. Anyway, it's definitely one to have a look at for the sort of stories you might tell. So I created a story map journal with 3 sections. As I scroll through, the map zooms in and shows more places. Then I added a couple of story actions. So you can see you continue that process, simply adding sections to add additional areas using the same map. You can add new web maps. You can add videos or images and so on. So I hope that's been a useful introduction to what story map applications are. And I showed you one of the story map interactive builders, hopefully show you that it's really easy to create these and also really fun and can be a bit addictive as well. that's all I was going to present. I wanted to spend some time getting your questions. So do I hand it back to you, Brian, at this point?
Yeah. Thanks, Rupert.
Sure.
I think we definitely have some questions, and
Yeah.
Sumant Malavaram is going to moderate the questions he's been
Oh, great.
compiling. Sumant is our past president of the University of Texas. Sumant?
Thanks, Brian, and thanks, Rupert. We
Sure.
have plenty of time here. I think this is a good time to kind of pause for a bit and get some questions in. And as we all know, we can keep talking about this for the rest of the day and still cover everything. So I started compiling the questions that were getting posted, so save some time. So I'll just go through the list, no particular order, and we can just check off those things. And if there is any question that needs more elaboration or explanation, etc., I'm happy to send this your way, Rupert, and you can feel free to add it to that, and then we can email it out to everyone later.
Sure.
All right. So the first question was, I'm assuming you can still do these for free, and what was the meaning there was basically when you were showing some of the initial app creation, etc. I think it was Ralph Barad that asked that question, whether all this stuff is available for free, and he hasn't logged into his ArcGIS Online account forever. So I kind of made a quick response, provided a quick response. They're saying that he's correct, and the prerequisite is an ArcGIS Online or an ArcGIS Enterprise account. And all the tools and templates are available as part of that framework. So anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, you can also use, you can create a free public account. So this is arcgis.com. I went to sign in, and you can create a free account if you want to do work by yourself, or if you're a student, or if you just want to play with things outside of your enterprise or organizational account, or if you're like a small community nonprofit, for example. So you can create story maps with the free public account in addition to the organizational account and enterprise account you mentioned.
Okay. Can you kind of elaborate or clarify a little bit on, there are limitations like when you're doing a public account, everything that you do has to be shared publicly if you want to share it, versus kind of the data limitations that you might get into if that data is shareable or not and things of that nature.
Yeah, with a public account, for example, you can sign in with Facebook or Google Plus and get a public account immediately. A public account, the only limitations are, like you said, you can only share things publicly or keep them private. So it doesn't let you share things just to an organization. It also won't let you publish data from ArcGIS Desktop, the ArcMap or Pro. It won't let you publish data into ArcGIS Online. So if you want to use your own data from the desktop environment, you can't publish it directly into ArcGIS Online using a free account. You can always save out a shape file or make a CSV file or use data that other people have created.
Got it. So I guess the recap there is for anybody to start playing with it, they can just go create a public account if they don't have one through their work or organization and still leverage it. But when it comes to doing some real stuff with it and data sharing, there are some nuances there that they need to be aware of. Cool. The next question is, are citations necessary when you use a map or data created by another entity?
Yes, it's a good idea to always put citations into your story map when you use those. If you look at maps in ArcGIS Online, you'll often see that they'll have a citation often in the details page of that map. So if I go to one of the demographic maps here, so I'm looking at one of the web maps in the Living Atlas, which is the built-in authoritative content in ArcGIS Online. And if I browse down here, you'll see they have the credits down on the right-hand corner. And it's a good idea, yes, to include that in your story map when you use someone else's web map, or if you use someone else's data in your own map. We also do that with photos as well. So if you're using a photo that someone else took, it's good form to always include a citation for that, a little photo credit in the story map.
Okay, fantastic. Moving on to the next one, is there a story map template that works independent of location, i.e. lat long or address? Yes. I see almost all the story map relates to a location.
Actually, there's actually only 3 that are location or place based. So the story map tour, the story map crowdsource, which enables you to make a story that other people write for you, and the story map shortlist. Those are all location based in that to create those, there's a set of places with locations. Apart from that, the other apps are narrative based. So Map Journal, Cascade, Map Series, and also Story Map Swipe and Story Map Basic. Those aren't location based. So you can use those with any map, whether you've got a set of places or not. You can also create those using no maps. So there are some story map cascades people are creating where they're actually using cascades sometimes to just present text and photos. Although, of course, as geographers, we'd advise you to have a map. But people are also using Cascade and Journal to show static maps. So sometimes people will make a map in ArcMap, and they'll take a screenshot of it, and then they'll put that image into the story map. Because sometimes you don't need your map to be interactive. You might have a beautiful map, and you might have annotation on top of it. You might add text on top yourself in a paint program to highlight certain things. You can just make a screenshot and include that in a map, include that as an image in a story map as well.
So that just prompted another question in my own head as you were saying that.
Yeah.
Do we have you don't have to point to it right now, but as a food for thought later, is there some white paper documentation of somebody's getting started? There's all these templates and different ways of doing the same thing. Is there some starting guide on, when to use what kind of apps or templates and so forth, or can you point us to?
The best place to go, I think, to answer that is to go to the apps page. So on the Story Maps website, I went to the apps page, and this tells you about each of the apps. And then if you go to the overview, you'll get some more tips about how that can be used. But I should also say that on the Story Maps website, under resources, we've gathered together a set of resources we think will be useful both for beginners and for new users. So we've got, not sure why it's saying my internet connection's unstable. It feels okay to me. Okay, so this is the resources page. There's some basics here. There's some links to different training, including some video seminars.
Okay.
Then there's FAQs as well and blogs. So yeah, look at the apps page first, then also check out the resources page, especially the basics section here.
Okay, perfect. That's fantastic. Next question, do you need ArcGIS Online credits to store your own maps that you add to your story map? Related question, I want to tackle both of them into one. Do you use credits when you make a story map?
Yeah, when you make maps or apps in ArcGIS Online and you're not using a free account, it will use your organization or enterprise credits. It doesn't use a lot of those. In fact, it uses very few. Even if you're uploading images into your story map, it doesn't use very many credits. The part of ArcGIS that really uses up credits the most is when you publish data from ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro as services into ArcGIS Online, because that uses up the most storage. So for example, if you have a parcel map of your entire city and you publish that into ArcGIS Online and add that into a map, it uses up a lot of credits. But the sort of map I created, the Welcome to San Diego one, uses a very small number of credits. You probably wouldn't even notice it. Also, making a story map app also doesn't use up many credits either. So the answer is really, it depends what's in your story map. But in general, it's not something you have to worry about with story map apps.
Okay, great. Next question here is, if you're looking at different locations on the globe, can different sections on the map be presented in different localized projections, or are we stuck in WGS 84?
You can use different map projections in ArcGIS Online, just inside one map. For example, preparing for this demo, I saw, actually I should have kept it around, but we had some maps showing Antarctica using a polar projection. So you can use different map projections inside in web maps, and then you can include those web maps in a story map. So for example, you might make a story map journal or a story map cascade where you've got different web maps and each one uses a different projection.
Okay. Can you discuss custom programming to enhance story maps?
Yeah. If you go to the apps page and then if you click on any of these apps like Story Map Series, right down at the bottom, you'll find a section called Host It Yourself. This is how you can download the code for a story map application and put it on your own server. There are a few reasons for doing that. For example, some people want to host the code on their own server because they want the domain of the story map app to be their own government domain or their own website domain. So if you don't want people to see ArcGIS.com when they launch the story map, hosting it on your own server is one way you can do that. Hosting something on your own server is also the way that you customize the story map to change the appearance. For example, there's an example just here of this is a story map series app that someone customized. So they downloaded the source code for the story map series. They put it on their server, which is www.cepf.net, which is it's a non-profit. And then they also customized it because they wanted to change the appearance of the app to more closely match the appearance of their website. So you find information about doing that at the bottom of any of these apps. Also, there's a link to a blog post giving all the steps on how to do that. I should add that if you host the source code on your own server, all you're doing is hosting the source code. The actual application itself and the maps and the data and everything are all in the ArcGIS cloud. So in this case, they customize the source code, but the web app and the data and the web maps they're using in this story map, those are all in ArcGIS Online still. So you build your app and your maps, either one or more maps, in ArcGIS Online. You create your story map series, then you download the code and point that code at that hosted application in ArcGIS Online. The same thing also applies if you're using ArcGIS Enterprise. So if you're using ArcGIS platform in an enterprise environment where you're not using ArcGIS Online, but all your maps and apps are all hosted in your organization's enterprise using ArcGIS, the same thing applies. The maps and apps will be in your enterprise, and you can either launch them directly in the enterprise environment, or you can download our source code and launch them from a separate server.
Okay. So I have another interesting question. I'm not exactly sure what this means, but I'll read it out and we can find out who asked that question. From our marketing department that supports our website, they're interested in the amount of time one would expect people to spend on a story map. Has Esri looked into that? So I guess the number of visitors and the time. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great question because as people in public affairs departments and marketing departments are seeing story maps, they're being shown story maps by GIS professionals, and they're saying, we could use that on our site. Or GIS professionals are saying, you could put this on our site, it's really cool. So those questions are starting to come up more to do with analytics of how something's used. There's some examples here by in our gallery. I'm going to filter it on travel and recreation, and also filter it on national government, because there's some examples created by the Bureau of Land Management. These are actually created by people in their public affairs department. These are story map cascades that they're creating themselves, and they just get a bit of help from the GIS folks to make the maps that they're including. But apart from that, all the text and all the photos is created by them, and they're using these story maps and promoting them in a social media campaign. It's actually a campaign that the BLM ran last year called My Public Lands, all to promote the wilderness areas that the Bureau of Land Management manages. And they did some analytics on these, and they found that people tended to stay on these longer than their average web page, probably because there's more content, but also arguably, once you've got someone who's clicked on a link to open up a story map like this, they're likely to be willing to spend a bit more time on it. So it's sort of in sort of marketing terms, it's like a focused browse where someone's chosen to open a certain interactive because they're interested in that topic. So they are getting quite good viewing times on them. The story map applications themselves don't support Google Analytics currently, but that's one of the reasons that people are sometimes downloading the source code and adding analytics into the story map apps. That's something we want to add into our code down the road because there's been lots of demand for that. When you go into ArcGIS Online, you can see the number of views that things have got. Like, not sure if you can see on this page, but every map or app in ArcGIS Online has a view count. So you can see the number of views your story maps had.
All right. We do have a few more questions. I don't think we'll have the time to get to everything, but as I mentioned earlier, we'll have Rupert respond to these, and we'll do a Q&A and post it along with the video. The one thing I think, if you can just take 30 seconds, Rupert, to touch on this one, I think this is an important topic about photo storage. You mentioned showed a couple examples there, but if you can kind of just elaborate on where the photos can come from and some best practices along those lines, that would be great.
Yeah, the easiest way to add photos into your story map is to just drag and drop them like I did. So I went to the image tab and then I uploaded an image. So you can drag and drop it right from your computer. So if you take pictures on your phone, for example, you could put them on your computer and then drag and drop them into there. You can also add photos if you're already sharing them publicly on Flickr and also Google+. So if you go into Flickr, and you can access anyone's public account. So I've got some photos on Flickr, and if you type in my name, Rupert S Inga, you can access my Flickr photos directly in Story Maps. You're not logging into Flickr, that's just my public account name. So that's another way to add photos into Story Maps. For example, when I take pictures with my tablet in the field, those automatically go into Flickr because I've got the Flickr app on my tablet. But the Flickr option is mainly used by organizations who've already got a lot of images in Flickr. For example, the Bureau of Land Management, who made this story map I showed just now, their social media campaign used Instagram and also Flickr to share photos. So we support Flickr directly. So all the photos that they added into their story map were already in Flickr. You can also reference any image via its URL. So if I go to the image option here in any of our builders, you see there's a link option. So I can type in the URL or paste in the URL of any image that's on the web and add it directly into a story. We don't recommend that though, because one of the issues is that if you're referencing a third-party image, sometimes that image might get deleted and then your story map will be broken. Also, if you reference an image via a URL, we don't do any optimization of that. When I drag and drop an image into a story map, as part of that process, we automatically optimize it. So if your image is really huge, we reduce it in size automatically and store it. We store it behind the scenes in JPEG format at 80% optimization. So it loads much more quickly. But we don't do that if you reference images via URLs. It's still a useful option. Like a lot of organizations have got images on their website, and you can use those directly in your story maps. Just check to make sure that the image isn't much bigger than 0.5 MB before you do that.
Great. I think we're just about at the top of the hour here. So Brian, sure. I'll turn it back to you if you want to make a couple of mentions about the workshops, et cetera, and close it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for moderating the questions. Rupert, we really appreciate you speaking today. I think it was pretty fantastic.
That was really fun, thanks.
Shows by the numerous questions we've had for you. So anyway, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Dunaway Associates and Esri, for sponsoring the speaker series. See a lot of people from a lot of different agencies online right now. Please, next month on September the 26th, we've got Steve Peasley from the NRCS talking about the creating custom soil databases, gridded soil survey, geographic databases, or the GSUGRO. So that's September 26th, Tuesday, same time. So the flyer will be out very, very soon. That should be a great presentation. Also, highlight today, I think we were about 90 or 91 participants, which is pretty fantastic. Also, the last thing we have here is on November the 2nd and 3rd, we're having back-to-back workshops on asset management, planning, strategy, and implementation. The Thursday, November 2nd workshop will be at the Esri Training Room in San Antonio. And the November 3rd workshop on Friday will be at the Friesen Nichols Training Room at Austin, Texas. So that'll be coming out very, very soon. I think we're going to limit to about anywhere from 25 to 30 people, but it's an all-day workshop, and information will be coming out very, very soon. So, Ollie, if there anything else that you have to add?
Not really. I'll be sending out the certificates by the end of the week, so if you don't receive it by Friday, please just email us at info@urisatexas.org, and just make sure you get your certificate, and hopefully things will all be attached this time.
Yeah, well, perfect. Yeah, and if you were in a training room, like I know some of the folks down at the GLO and other areas, they pile into a training room. So if you all need PDHs and you attended and you haven't got it, please let us know and we'll get that out to everybody. So, Patrick Young, anything from you? If you're still on, he might have had a meeting to go to. So, but well, at any rate, let's go ahead. We're pretty much 1 minute after 1, and we'll see you all next week or next month. And thanks for attending.
Thank you. Bye.